You may have played poker, but playing poker in Texas is a different animal. This is the Texas Poker Podcast with Tyler and Clint.
Hello, this is the Texas Poker Podcast. I'm Tyler, this is Clint.
What's up, y'all?
And we are back with episode 57.
Episode 57. So, we've actually played a little bit of poker over at the Doghouse in Cyprus, which that poker room is growing just more and more on me. I really starting... I was kind of iffy at first, but I'm starting to really like it more and more. On Tuesday, we did a kind of a short session on that one. It was such a short session. It was like a 2-hour session. Not really much to go off.
I mean, it was almost like a hit and run. I mean, we played for less than 2 hours.
Well, in all honesty, I didn't realize how short it was. I thought we'd been there like 2.5 or so, and then, but like I think we were both tired from coming off of working, and just me playing poker tired is just might as well just be donking off money because poker's pretty brutal when you're tired.
Right. I was there trying to get that money. But no, I was, it was, I think we were both exhausted. So it led to a short session. But there were, I mean, I guess we each had one pretty key hand for the session, right?
My definitely key hand was against a lady who is kind of, I guess you would say, kind of a calling station a little bit. You can tell she's kind of new to poker and likes to play a lot of hands. I have pocket queens. I raise pretty big pre-flop and get a call from just her. I flop an overpair and bet it all the way down, and she calls me down with middle pair. Yeah, on the turn, she calls me all in with middle pair, and my queens are good. And really nothing to write home about, but that was a hand that kind of made the session. It wasn't much of a session for me. I was up 190, but I mean, we were there for 2 hours, so I'll take that all day.
Right. I had one where so my first two cards were pocket jacks. I was like, here we go. Then it's the Omaha hand. I was like, dear God. So then after that, I get queen 10 with a suited jack. So queen jack of diamonds, I believe. I flop a gutter to the nut straight. So I was like, well, okay, someone bets, he didn't even bet that, he didn't even pot it. I think he bet like 15. And then I hit the gutter on the turn, which gives me the absolute nuts.
Okay.
I pot it. There's a flush draw available. The other guy, so it's heads up, he calls. It's a clean river. I pot it again. He calls. He had the second nut straight. I had the nut straight. It kind of plays itself, but that was basically my whole session right there.
I like that you potted it on the turn in the river. Well, the river, you have the nut, so definitely you're going to. On the turn, like I say, I'm glad you're not slow playing. Like, I think a lot of people from No Limit background end up slow playing some of this stuff when there's a lot of sets that have outs, and like you say, there's flush draws and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it seems to like it kind of played itself, but also I like the way you played it, too.
Well, he had second nut straight with the flush draw to go with it, so, he's never folding, so.
Yeah, that's a...
Oh, and I won $433 because I turned a straight to a guy's flop set. He boated the river, so that's where the rest of that money went.
So. Okay, well, that's not bad. That's a really good session for such a short one. So that was, like I say, that poker room's very much growing on me. So it's was glad to have a winning session there. Outside of the session that we just played, did you play any other sessions? Okay, then I guess I'll go into my Paramount session.
Right, yeah, because I worked while you went to Paramount, so that...
That's right, that was a Friday night on there. So there's a couple key hands that happened at Paramount. I get there, and they're just kind of getting a cash table going. I hadn't been there in a while, and it tends to be one of my favorite rooms still. We are very short-handed. I think we're playing 5. We get it's Omaha, I have ace, queen, 10, 6 single suited to the ace. I raise to 10 pre-flop because we're shorthanded. 3 Broadway cards and a suited ace seems definitely good enough to raise. And 2 call. The flop is 10, 6, 3 with a flush draw that I don't have. So I flop top 2 pair. I'm thinking of what to do when a player donks 20 into me. I'm like, well, and he's kind of an aggressive thinking player. So there's probably players that I would not play this way, but he seems to really have a grasp, and he seems like he can be a little bit more aggressive than most players. I go ahead and pop for 100, thinking if he's got a set of threes, then he's got a set of threes, but I don't love it when he goes all in right over the top of me.
I mean, this sounds so dicey.
It's extremely dicey. But at this point, this is early in the session. I think I had 150 more. I'm sitting there with top 2. It was one of those, if he's got a set of threes, he's got a set of threes. I even asked him, do you have a set here all the time? He's like, yeah. I make the call. And we run it once, and I am good. He flopped 10-3 for a top and bottom 2 pair, and also had the flush draw to go along with it. So he had a ton of outs. Good. It was a good call, but like I say, he was running very live. And, of course, in Omaha, that's usually how that's going to go.
Absolutely. Nice to fade some outs there.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very happy with that hand. Especially that started me off on a good note. There's one other that really got me. The bomb pot. I have 9-5 of clubs. It's an Omaha bomb pot, and I flop a flush on both boards. It's all clubs on both boards. I kind of just bet this all the way down. And the good thing is the ace, king, and queen are all out there.
I was about to say, this sounds like you could just be flop dead.
Oh, 100%. I did not feel real good about it, but there was some action, but eventually, there was somebody who had a flush, but they didn't have the jack high flush, so I ended up winning that board. Really weird. This is kind of an interesting topic when you're playing against someone new.
Oh yeah, he told me all about this.
Because I got the crap kicked out of me by a new player who just didn't, because he was making bets, it didn't really make sense, and it makes you think, some of these new players actually have an advantage. On one of the double board bomb pots, I have a decent flush. Was it? Yeah, it was a double board bomb pot. I think it was jack high. We call the flop, and then it checks all the way to him on the button on the turn, where my flush, it actually ends up with a 4 to a flush. Of course, it's Omaha, you have to use 2 cards, so it really doesn't change anything. And they were all lower. So I have a jack high flush, but there's also the ace high flush, the king high flush, and the queen high flush. It goes around to him, and he pots it for, I think, 250. A good chunk of my stack here.
We got to mention, this is 1-2.
Yeah, this is 1-2 as well. So it's a little bit, the stack size are a little bit shorter. Well, it comes back to me. I'm only playing one board. If he has the ace high flush, king high flush, queen high flush, I'm just completely dead. I feel like this is just a fold, and I don't hate this fold, but it goes back around. There's one guy who's all in, and we see what his hand is. He's got the single ace of diamonds, which he thought was the nut flush, and got me off an actual flush. So it was one of those, and we had a couple hands like this, where this guy just got the better of me, because he really didn't know any better, and I had to give him some credit for something. So
I imagine that was so heartbreaking to see him with just the ace of diamonds there.
was kind of tough right there. And then there was another one. This was the last hand of the night where I flopped top pair, and he donks into me. I have king queen. I raise to it was 15. It's about 50 going to the pot with the blinds. We go king. I flop the top pair with king. There's a 7 on there and a 3. This is a great board for me. I can't wait to bet. I'm in late position. The first player checks. Then he donks into me for pot. I found this a very weird spot.
So what did you have and what was the board? Just so we can go over it.
I have king queen. There's a king 7-3 with a flush draw out there.
I mean, I'm just folding.
Are you folding here to a 1 pot size bet with top pair?
And it was PLO, you said?
No, this is hold'em.
I'm calling.
That's kind of what I thought. I thought about raising, but I also thought that might be just overplaying my hand. I mean, you could have a random 2 pair, could have a set. And then if he has a lesser king, I got him dominated pretty much anyway.
Oh, right. I remember this hand. This is the one that I was thinking. You're right. Given the hand, I was thinking you should have raised the flop.
Yeah, it's
with the flush draw.
Different. It's definitely a different spot. The other player folds. Then the turn is a 7. He then bets, I think, 25. It was a very weird bet. I remember that. I'm sorry. No, that was wrong. He bet like 75. He bet 75. Nothing changes here. I'm still with top pair. Really good kicker here. So I end up making the call. And then the river is an ace. And he bets 50. So now he's down bets the river. It's all over the board. I don't know what the hell's going on. But I'm like, did you randomly hit an ace here? Oh, it was an ace that completed the flush, too. It was the ace of hearts, completes the flush, and he bets 50. I don't love this card. The one thing I thought I was beating was the flush draw. But now we're looking at 50 into 150, 250, 300. We're looking at 50 into 300, and I still have top pair. Well, not top pair anymore, but the random ace doesn't make much sense. Nothing's really making that much sense. I go ahead and put in the call, and he's got a 7 for trip 7s, which just threw me, because very weird for that to be a lead out for pot on the flop. I thought that turn 7 was a great card for me, so it really just threw me.
I mean, it sounds like it was pretty tough trying to break down a new player's strategy.
Yeah, it was just, sometimes when you're just against a new player, you're just kind of playing the hands, and it really just, it was one that was just got the better of me. He had just got the better of the hands and just killed me. But I ended up with a profit of about 300 over the night, so it was still a profitable night. But yeah, I was I don't know, say at some point, sometimes they're gonna get you. So that brings us to
the session we just played.
The session we just played at Doghouse. Kind of interesting tables we were on. It was a maniac of a table, right?
How did yours start?
Mine definitely started way more normal than that. It started with a pretty good a mix of players, some good, some bad.
Well, let me explain to you mine first real quick. So I was playing, and I kept, like, whenever I first sat down, we had some deep stacks, but they all ran to the round of each table and then left me there with, like, everyone who had, like, $100. But this one dude who was drunk, but he just kept beating me over and over again on the river. It was the craziest thing. Well, one hand, he misread his hand and thought he had jack high and had the nuts. When I was trying to bluff him, he just kept calling me down with what he thought was a gutter. And then I ended up with one pair, and he's like, oh, I'm jack high, I have nothing. And he turned over his cards, and he just had the nuts. I was like, wow, this is just so brutal for me.
That's pretty hurtful. It's yeah, I know that you texted me from the other that table saying it was shitty. I didn't know like it was that short stacked, and that's why it was that shitty.
Well,
There.
it was that, and then like I mean, so the game's playing relatively aggressive. I have 4-5 suited. The flop comes, 3-4 suited. The flop comes deuce 3-3. So I flop trips.
Okay.
The turn is a deuce pairing the board.
So now you have a boat.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. I messed his hand up on you. I messed his hand up on you bad. I'm sorry. I had pocket threes. The flop came 3 deuce 5. So then I flop a set on a draw heavy board.
Okay.
I check it. It checks around. I'm in the small blind. I check the turn whenever it pairs the deuce. So I have threes full of deuces. Guy makes it 15. Another guy calls it 15. I re-raise it looking like a bluff to 75. The guy lays down a deuce.
Well, I don't know. Like, you re-raise... Are you ever re-raising like this as a bluff? This seems like you're going to have it so often here when you're re-raising into two players. One that's bet into and one that's now called.
I tried to make it look like it was one of the ones where I was trying to play into table image of trying to look tilted. I mean, because I was. And I mean, it was shortly after whenever that guy thought he had jack high and folded face up. He said he was going to fold face down. If I talked to him about it after. But yeah, so then I re-raise it. There was a flush draw and a deuce, or 2 deuces. And the guy was like, oh, I'm pretty sure bluffing, but I fold. And then the other guy folds. And then he was asking me about it. He said, well, I had just a deuce. And I was like, wow, I was expecting to get paid off by the deuce. But
yeah, without a doubt. That's definitely the card you're hoping to get paid off by. It's, I don't know. I mean, do you kind of wish now that you would have donked on this turn bet? I mean, because I feel like the re-raise is so strong here, but if you lead out, I can't imagine he's folding trips at that point, right?
I mean, I wish I would have done anything that would have resulted in me getting more money. Sure. Absolutely. I wish I would have dunked out for 20 and he would have called.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, like, we're not trying to be results oriented here, but
I see what you're
just
saying,
in general, do you think it's a better move, or because once you check raise, I guess, well, most people are going to call with a deuce there. I don't know. That's a good fold by him,
especially with the flush draw available. So, I mean, I don't know. But yeah, so that was a good fold by him, and that was kind of not tough for me, but just good play by him, which resulted in me not getting paid. I mean,
yeah, that was my table was decent, I guess. It was like, this was one of those sessions that was kind of a tough session for me. I was card dead almost the entire session, and literally every hand I played it horribly.
And I still didn't win when I was at your table.
Yeah, when you moved to table, you should have definitely had a winning session because almost nobody bluffs. I got bluffed twice in the session. I had top pair on both. One was, it just ran out into the pre-flop razor calls. I have a pair of kings, but crappy kicker. Kind of put myself in this situation. I call. He checks the turn, which also gives me a flush draw with my pair of kings. This is where I think I messed up this hand. Is when I bet here, I'm getting called only by better, and at worst, if I get raised, then I'm losing a lot of equity. But as you can tell, he checks, I bet, and then he re-raises to 70 to I think 75, and then I mean a top pair with a flush draw. not going anywhere, so I call. The river bricks. And it's one of those boards. I have like king 7. And it's like king through 8. And I think there might be even I think it's like 8, 9, 10, king. It's just like all these big like, kind of Broadway cards. I'm like ton of 2 pairs here. He bets 150. I fold, and then he shows a bluff. And he had a pair of 10s, which I would have thought he might have checked that for maybe some showdown value. But it got me off the king, so good for him. Another one where I flop top pair with a pair of 7s, and it's all undercards. So that's the nature of a top pair.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was thinking, I don't know if you had to clarify that, but I'm happy you did.
Just in case you were wondering. It was, let me see, a 5 was open-ended, so it would have been 6, 7, 6, 4. The other guy calls. And then there's a couple callers. The turn brings in another undercard. I remember that, like a 2 or something like that. I check kind of for pot control. A guy bets 60. Comes around to me. I call. Then the turn the river is a 5. And it doesn't make the open-ended straight draw, but it makes a lot of stuff that just got to 2 pair. He leads out for, I think, 200, 250. It was a gigantic bet. And I fold pair 7s, and he shows a bluff. He hit the pair of 5s, had a 9 for like an open-ended straight draw on the flop. So, I mean, just horrid play. Every hero call I did was the wrong call. It just, like, some days you're just not on your game, and this was that day for me.
Well, for me, the story of the session was me not getting premiums and just losing. But the big hand for me was I had 2 or 3 big hands, but I had pocket 8s. The guy to my right raises blind. I know he didn't raise. I'm looking. I see. I call. No, sorry. He limped blind. I raised a 35. One other person called. He calls blind. The flop comes deuce 4. Like, what would it be? Like deuce 4-7 maybe?
Okay.
And I had pocket 8s. He bets.
Now, has he looked at this point?
Now he looked, yes.
Okay.
He bets, and I was like, well, I'm not really buying this. Because he's shown bluffs before. Quite a few bluffs.
Well, not to mention, this is a bluff-heavy board. 'Cause, I mean, 5-6 would be a bluff. I mean, he could just think he's good with like a pair of 7s, pair of 4s.
Exactly.
Or something like that.
So he bets like, maybe 50. I called the 50. The turn brings, I believe it was the jack of clubs bringing in a flush draw. And I'd already seen him bluff on turned flush draws before.
Mm-hmm.
He bets like 200, 225, something like that.
Okay.
I call. The river bricks it out. I'm like, well, if I thought I was good on the turn, I'm still good.
Right.
That's what I was thinking. He bets 500.
Oh, God.
I snap call. He flopped a set.
Man, if somebody's playing blind like that, and man, I don't know. Well, if you have an over, that's just a cooler. When it's over, even if he's not playing blind, an overpair to a set is going to be really a tough situation. It's not a matter of losing money. It's going to be a matter of how much money you're going to lose.
Yeah, apparently heard much he was going to bet.
Yeah. Now, did you snap call, or did you kind of tank? Or was this a tank call in the river?
I don't even remember. I think I tanked for a little bit, but everyone was talking so much during the hand.
Yeah, I don't know. This is at my table, which was kind of a maniacal table too. So that's kind of, I think we need to put that in perspective. This might be a fold against a normal table, but these there were at least 3 players kind of playing just kind of like a maniacs, playing whatever.
Yeah, and this was one of those players. This was also the player who was super drunk, who kept misreading his hand and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
because I think this is going to sound like just a punt by you if we don't put that in context. Because otherwise, this podcast could be like, well, Tyler calls off gigantic amount with pair of 8s.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like a punt in the moment, but...
Tyler's like, it definitely resulted in the same way.
Yeah, so it felt a lot like a punt whenever I did it. So that was disheartening. And so this was a gigantic hand for me to kind of get me back on track. So our table agrees to do the 1, 3, 6, 12, 24.
Right.
So I'm in the 3. I get dealt ace king of spades. I'm like, this is perfect because one, I have like $650 behind, right? And you led for 75.
Yeah, so I can go from my perspective on this one.
Yeah.
So I am under the gun. Well, I'm under the gun from the straddle. I'm the first to act from the after the straddle.
Which was like the button, right? Wasn't that how many straddle?
I mean, yeah, I think so. It's close to it.
I'm pretty sure the first act was the button.
So there's a ton of dead money out there. I kind of do a loose queen 10, and I raise it to 75, putting pressure. I think I'm going to put pressure on the straddle. And I kind of like this hand for this situation per my stack size, because I probably have like 450 behind at this moment, maybe 425, but it's something around there. And I'm like, well, if I get calls, then it's possible I just get a fold. I take some pretty decent dead money down. Well, I mean, just the straddles would be 24, 36, 42, 45. I mean, $45. It's almost, if everybody folds, I just increase my stack by 10%. And then if people call, well, any queen 10 where it's top pair, I can just shove. So it gets called by the next player, gets called by the next player, and this is where it comes to Tyler.
There's one more call.
No, it was only 2 right for 75, right?
Oh, sorry, 3. You were one of them.
Yeah.
Sorry, so then I just ship it all in for like 630 probably.
Yeah, I was disheartened to see that. When you shipped it, it made me very sad, just to let you know.
You look super bummed in the moment.
I was like, well, this might be where I can really start to rack up. And then there's Tyler. And before it even gets to Tyler, I see him like stacking his chips, and I can see what's about to happen. I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. So I end up folding, and Tyler, you tell me how the rest of this hand plays out.
The next player folds, and then I get the guy tanks forever, and then calls. So we don't really know what he had, but he was one of the kind of, would you say, maniac or loose players or
I'd definitely
aggressive.
give a maniac on this one. So yeah,
yeah. I mean, I just flop a flush and he mucks.
Yeah, you flop. You have ace king spades. Flop comes 3 spades, and you're done. Which he said he didn't have a pair, which I believe the way he's playing. It looked like, I don't know. We'll never know what he had, but when you showed over ace king, even before the flop, he did not look happy. I think he had either like ace jack, ace queen, king jack, some. It seemed like you had him dominated even from the start without flopping a flush. But flopping the nut flush, it's a good way to feel good about that hand.
Yeah, I was really wishing you were in it. And then and then I play one other interesting hand. It's a PLO hand. It's almost the last hand of the night. Or was it the last hand? I think it was the last hand of the night.
I had gotten stacked, so I was not in the last hand of the night, so I was up walking around the poker room, so it very well might have been the last hand of the night, and if it was, you're going to have to go right street by street for me.
Yeah, I forgot about that. It was like I was walking around crying. But so I get dealt ace of spades, 10 of spades, ace of hearts, 6 of clubs. And one player bets out for like, it was like 15. I called, the next guy pots it. Well, no, it must have been one other player called. It was a pretty big pot. And then he pots it. And then I was thinking, well, I'm just going to repot and get it all in pre-flop with this guy because he only had like maybe 200 more behind.
Okay,
And
yeah,
I was like,
absolutely.
this would be fine. The guy who covers me calls.
So he covers you. Like, what are you at right now? Probably about.
Maybe like 1,200.
Oh gosh. So this is
Might have been a little bit
so
more.
tough.
Actually, it had to be a little bit more.
So you 15. You remember what that guy potted it for?
It was like 150, 145, something like that.
150, 145. So let's say it's like 150. The other guy calls.
Yeah.
God, this is. So you can basically get almost your entire stack in here.
I could, yes.
So, because let's say you repot. So if you repot it, we're looking at 450, 600, 750, and then what was ever in the pot to begin with beforehand. Ooh, good Lord. So tell me what you did here.
I weaned out and called.
I mean, probably smart. I think for the math actually says to repot here. But that being said, you know, I don't blame you.
I mean, I did not want to be the story of the guy who repotted with aces and loses like to 6, 7, 8, 9 or something.
Just to let you know, I've seen this story over and over again.
Yeah, so I was like, well, I definitely don't want that to be the conclusion of my night. So I only call. I flop a gutter with, it was 7. So I had 6. So it was 7, 9. What else? I remember an 8 gave me a gutter. And it was a diamond draw out there. And I did not. I had the spades with my ace.
Okay.
But I flopped a gutter with my 6 and my 10.
Uh-huh.
I hit the gutter.
Here's the problem, is there's no gutter that makes you the nuts, though.
I mean, you're talking to the guy who knows that's my problem.
Okay. I was like, that was my biggest concern when you said that. I was like, there's not one gutter here that would make the 6-10 the nuts. So, okay. So you hit, but you do hit the gutter.
I do hit the gutter.
Okay.
Guy checks it. I pot it for 600 and something. It was a bunch. I don't remember how much it was. Maybe like 5. I don't remember. But he insta-folded. He had pocket queens. The other guy had aces as well. My straight holds.
Oh, God. The other guy had aces as well?
Yeah.
Ooh. Probably a good call not repotting that. Because, I mean, with him holding those aces, you're not feeling great about queens. You're still be a favorite, but damn.
Wait, what? No, I had aces, the short stack had aces, the deep stack had queens.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, if you repot it, then those queens call, you can flop a set, and
gotcha.
you have no way to flop a set. You're still ahead probably, but God, it would definitely hurt your odds a little bit.
Definitely. But that one led to me. I mean, I made a pretty good comeback. I was in the game. I was down to 600. And then I ran it all the way back up to a $673 loss.
Yeah, so that was, well, I mean, without them knowing, that's a very...
Sure. I was in the game for $2,500.
Yeah, it's so yeah. I had 600, and then I had a $600 loss. Well, yeah, that's a huge comeback. I mean, I'm very sad that the entire time you were coming back, I was falling off a cliff.
Before Clint fell off the cliff, he's like, "You want to leave?" I'm like, "We can't leave. The game just got good."
Yeah.
And then Clint loses all his money.
Yeah. Well, I thought about, because I had started out shitty. I mean, it was card dead I think we played like 7 hours, and it was pretty just horrible the entire time. And I got above even like $100, and I was like, well, maybe this is a time just to call this good or whatever. You know, it's been a kind of a tough session, and I'm like, well, no, let's see what happens. And you know, it's one of those things that I stall, and I'm like, well, now I'm down a little bit. Let me get back up again. Tell you what, once I was down that second time, never came back up. It was, and I mean, there's certain sessions where you just get coolered. And, you know, it is what it is. You're just not designed to win. This is one of those sessions that probably could have been a win. I definitely just made every call I made was really bad. Not everyone. Well, I mean, I was only down 600 for the session, so there were some that went my way. But the majority hero calls I made were really bad. All the folds I made, I was shown a bluff instantly. I mean, this might be karma for me showing Mendicha a bluff, because everybody was showing it to me. I mean, you want to talk about one time? I got shown it every damn time I folded. And then every time, I actually had some good hands. I flopped a set of aces on Omaha.
Didn't you river quad?
Rivered quads, got no action.
That was so funny when you tried to pot it, but you had already limped the 3.
God damn, man. I don't even know what I was thinking. Like I say, not my best session. I had pocket kings, flopped a set of kings, got down bet, got one call, and then my next bet was folded. It was one of those that every time I did have a good hand, I got no action. And like I say, not really a great session for me, but I was glad to see you make a pretty astounding comeback from what had happened earlier.
When you had the set of 3s, I was trying to get lucky versus that super deep stack guy. I had just complete trash. I was like, maybe I can go runner. No. But yeah. I was like, well, that's tough. I had one interesting hand. This, I guess, probably closed it out pretty close. But I had King 4 of diamond, King 4 offsuit in the straddle.
Okay.
And I told someone, I said, "Oh, this is my lucky hand." So I called. I was in for 6. They made it 20. There's a bunch of people in there.
Okay.
So I was like, whatever. So I call. I told them, "Oh, this is my lucky. This is my favorite hand.
Right.
I win a bunch with it. Trust me." I flop the king, and there's a flush draw. It's like king, spade, and the king of hearts.
Okay.
They bet pretty big. It's 3 ways. I call. It was like maybe 40. It went 40, I call.
Okay.
The turn is a 4 of hearts. So it was spade, heart. It was double, basically, right? They both check it, and I was like, oop, time to... I told them I'm going to blast you guys out of this pot now. And I bet like 250. And they both fold, and one of them asked to see the river. Of course, his flush would have come in. He was mad.
Oh, good way to blast it right there, then.
Yeah. I was like, let's close out on that equity.
Yeah, no kidding. Like, they do have some equity in this pot. Let's make them pay for every little bit of it. That was well played. I mean, I'm not real thrilled about you playing King 4 suited, but I was pretty suspect tonight, too, so I'm definitely not throwing stones.
Well, I don't know. Okay, here's my thought on it, right? I'll give you the thought. You can disagree and we'll end the podcast.
Okay.
So, I'm in for 6. I'm on the button straddle. They make it 20. It goes call. I feel like you need to defend your straddle with something, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to straddle, yeah. Well, one, it's only 14 more.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I actually completely agree here. If you're on the straddle, you need to defend it here with this.
Okay, that was kind of my thought on it. It wasn't even suited. So it was...
mean, sure, I get. Whatever, man. Okay, yeah, you're right. I disagree. I don't know why you're in there with King 4, but
Well, you make it 30, we'll talk, but 20, I gotta call.
yeah, sure. Okay. I mean, I don't know what you're looking for me, man. Okay, so 14 more you're gonna call, right?
Yes.
So if you're the big blind and they make it, what is it, 17 or whatever.
But I have position here. Come on. It all changes, and I'm closing the action.
Yeah, you are closing the action. I don't know. I don't love it, but whatever. I'm glad you won the hand is all I can say with it.
Because I'm too tired to argue. It's 4 a.m.
Yeah. At 4 a.m, you can play whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah. Well, on that note, this is the Texas Poker Podcast. We'll talk to you next week.
That was the Texas Poker Podcast. Go ahead and rack up, add time, and we'll see you next week.